Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the new round one of the USACkarting.com Invitational eSeries. We're back with you, the DriversEye Live team. Myself, Brennan Kesmark, joined tonight by Scott Michaels. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Brendan.
And Joseph Mudrak also joining us as somewhat of a silent partner as the production crew tonight. Happy to have everybody's company as always. We're a minute away from getting qualifying started at Lime Rock Park. This is, for those of you that were with us last week, this has sort of become the new round one. We were at Okayama on last Wednesday night, and after some teething work, I'd say, the race was basically called to warm up. They awarded a cool $100 to Nick Rowland, who won the only race of the night. That $100 going towards an entry at next year's SimCraft 24 Hours of Orlando. Tonight, we do it for real. 2 races, 30 minutes long. No pit stops, no chicanes, Lime Rock Park. Scott, big, powerful GT cars, 40 of them on a 1.5 mile bull ring. How do you feel about that?
I don't think there's any way around it. This is going to be pretty wild. It's definitely going to be an evening where survival is the key. We've got sections of the track where the barriers on both sides are very close. We've got some the entire track has no tarmac runoff. And as you say, 40 cars is a bit of a squeeze. So yeah.
Literally, as you were speaking there, Alex Gomes threw his Mercedes at the scenery coming up over the top of the uphill onto what little back straight there is. And I think we're going to see quite a bit of that. Not so much because the cars are too big for the circuit or inappropriate for the circuit, but it's a lot of pushing very, very hard. The cars are very evenly matched, and there's not a whole lot of room to play with. So I think we're in for a treat here. It should be entertaining, if nothing else. These are, for those of you that were with us last week, it's the same field. We whittled it down from 50 plus down to a grid of 40. That have been allocated to Room 1 and then Room 2 for the overflow. Pre-qualifying took place Monday and Tuesday evenings. Apparently last night was pretty frantic with cars trying to get some clean track and set a time that would get them into the Room 1 as we're broadcasting from tonight. On your screen right now, Chance Kelly. It's a private qualifying session, so you'll only see the car that we're following on track. But it gives us an opportunity to see exactly what's happening. Most of the cars at the moment on their out lap. Scott, as far as qualifying goes here, you've only got 3 chances. A banker lap first, or is it get at it from the beginning?
It does take a little bit of time to get the tyres in. So you're going to have to be going at it from, by in, I obviously mean warmed up. You're going to have to be going at it from the beginning just to get that tyre temperature in. But at the same time, you can't expect lap 1 to be your ultimate lap time. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a compromise, but yeah, essentially it's going to be 4 because you're going to have to go hard on the out lap as well. But yeah, 4 hard laps and see where things fall. And I don't know about you, but I'm expecting the times to be extremely close at the top, just because it's such a tiny track. Any little mistake is going to be punished with, I imagine, 5 or so places on the grid. So yeah, should be seeing some swapping and changing in the final laps of the session.
Yeah, after practice, I think it was 0.07 of a second between the top 2 drivers. Max Calder at the moment, first to put in a lap, 49.001. We're under a minute around Lime Rock Park, and already just 25,000ths of a second. Now Andrew Pinkerton goes under 49 seconds for the first time, 48.798. We go on board the number 77 Mercedes as he rounds Big Bend. And into the left-hander, 48.1 from Alex Gomes. That's a huge lap straight out of the box. Pinkerton second, now just jumped by Justin Richezin. A 48.4 kind of splits the gap there.
Yeah, it's got Alex Gomes has very little competition right now, but we've only got 16 of our 40 times in, so you can expect a few more to come in. And as I said, I'm expecting laps 2 and 3 to be faster.
Following Andrew, we switch over to Brendan Baker as he rounds the left-hander and on to No Name Straight. He has yet to set a time in qualifying. I'm sure he's done a lap, but at the moment, no valid lap time. Remember, if you register an incident point, an off-track, or a 0x, it will invalidate the lap, such as in the nature of iRacing. And Hugh North in 4th right now, 48.952. The top 4, the only cars underneath the 49-second bracket. Baker swings it onto the front straightaway, just up against the inside curb there, through the downhill and across the line. Not a valid lap time either there from Brendan Baker.
Worth noting that we've got Hunter Fox and Josh Olsen have both spun on their laps. Hunter Fox, in fact, hit the wall so hard that he has had to reset and try again. Blake McCord with a spin coming out of turn 2 in his Mercedes.
And these are all, of course, this is a private session, so they're not impeding anybody else's lap times, but nevertheless, it is going to, well, obviously invalidate their lap times. Pinkerton has done his third lap of 48.483 is his best effort of the night. Alex Gomes is done with his third lap of 48.102, and it looks like that might just wind up being enough for pole. With Pinkerton and Gomes done, Rich Eisen, I think, is still out there. We're on board with Chance Kelly again in the number 666 Audi R8 LMS. Through the downhill and swings it onto the front straightaway. He might be one of the only few that can upset Gomes, and now Baker on the front row. Roland goes third. Kelly across the line, and I think that lap was invalid. It's a 48.900 and as a last lap, and that won't be enough. He still sits sixth. On board Andrea Zellini, another Audi R8 LMS, 48.686, puts him up into sixth.
Brendan Baker is actually still on his third lap, coming around the penultimate corner. Just coming to the downhill under the bridge.
On board with him now, Scott. Up over the curb, the right-hander just clips the curb on the left on the way out and grabs sixth gear, comes across the line. It's a 48.293, just about 15 thousandths of a second slower than his second lap, and that'll do it for Baker's effort. I think is going to be the only one who can get close enough to Alex Gomez to mount to charge.
Alex Gomes.
Gomes, yep, I've done it again. Classic. In any case, I think it's going to be Gomes on the pole again. Ooh, Matt Strand off at the uphill. And into the Armco on driver's right in the number 25 Mercedes. And that'll do it for his qualifying effort.
That was his third lap, so yep, that is game over for Matt Strand. I'm interested to see that there's a good 10 cars down at the bottom, make that about 9 cars now, who haven't bothered to, well, I say haven't bothered, have elected not to set a time. Either, I'm expecting that to either incidents, or perhaps some of them have decided they're going to take it easy and wait for the carnage to unfold ahead of them, as Hunter Fox once again has a Larry moment out of the last corner. So this
he's pushing really hard, arguably too hard.
Looks like that's it for him.
I think that'll be it for just about everybody, I think.
I believe Justin Atchison hasn't taken his qualifying yet.
We've just gone on board with him, Scott.
He has been reasonably close to the pace in practice. I'm not expecting him to trouble Alex Gomes or Brendan Baker at the top, but it'll be interesting to see what he manages.
Justin Atchison, incidentally, you see the black and teal as he sort of drops in and out of this private qualifying session. That is one of the Pride drivers from the Simcraft 24 Hours of Orlando. The 333 and the 666 for those of you that were with us on Super Bowl weekend. There's a few of them here tonight from both of those karts, and Atchison comes across the line and does not set it. That should do it, we think, for qualifying.
We've got Zach Buchanan in his Ferrari leading the pits. We do still have 3 minutes left, so plenty of time to get those laps in if you've got them remaining.
You've got to sort of redo the mental math on that, Scott, and remind yourself that 3 minutes is plenty of time to get a few laps in. Although, if you're going to throw it at the grass on your out lap,
depends how you're planning on attacking those laps.
Exactly. Well, Atchison's still out there. Slightly dodgy internet connection, and obviously with the private qualifying sessions, we're not seeing what we normally would when we go green here in a little bit.
I'm a little bit confused by his connection issues, actually, because the statistics are fine. So we'll have to see if that continues in the race.
Yeah, and I mean, iRacing isn't meant so much to watch private qualifying laps. This is just sort of a bonus for us as spectators of the session.
Zach Buchanan's going to have another go.
Yeah, the number 29 red Ferrari, the Ferrari, as it were.
Yeah, might as well touch on that. We do have 2 Ferraris in the field this time. Which is it 3? Sorry, Ferraris in the field.
It was 2 that pre-qualified, I think.
I can see 4 on the list. So that's obviously quite a small proportion of our 40-car field. The Ferraris in terms of iRacing balance and performance, are right now the weakest car in the field. But I think, assuming it's the same as Justin Atchison takes a spin through turn 1 on his final lap of quality, so that will do it for him. I think we've got setups in this league which are designed to balance the cars further. Am I right in thinking that on a track by track basis?
Yeah, I don't believe there's a custom. The idea is that they'll drive vaguely similarly, and a driver pushing each car to its limit should get it reasonably close to the theoretical maximum for the whole class.
Yeah, so hopefully, despite the fact that there are only 4 Ferraris in the field, hopefully they won't be at any kind of disadvantage.
Yeah, it does seem, I will say, at the top this week, certainly last week it was largely a Mercedes-dominated effort, and Mercedes, it is a quick car within the iRacing GT3 realm, but it seems like the Audis here are a little better balanced against them than they were at OKI on the lap.
Yeah, I'll add that from my experience, Mercedes is a pretty difficult car to drive in this current build of iRacing, especially around these fast sweeping corners. It does have a tendency to loop the back end around mid-corner. So that could be interesting to watch. The BMW, in my experience, is by far the easiest car to drive, even if it perhaps lacks a little bit of ultimate pace in the iRacing basic balance of performance. But all of this is going to depend on the fixed setups each of these guys will give them. So yeah, we've got to 0 remaining time, so that is the end of qualifying now.
Yeah, unlike last week where we found ourselves in a situation where we had to reset the field, because we pre-qualified this week, what we get is a straight jump from qualifying into the race with the 40 cars that were allowed in from pre-qualifying, and a straight copy of the grid from this qualifying session within the race night as such. So Alex Gomes is on the pole and will get on the grid here in just a few moments' time alongside Brendan Baker on the front row, Nick Rowland and Justin Richezin on the second row, 3rd and 4th, Andrew Pinkerton 5th in the 77, Andre Azzolini in 6th, Davey Hamilton, who is in fact Davey Hamilton Jr., is P7, Chance Kelly in 8th, Hugh North 9th, and Matt Strand rounds out the top 10 in the number 25 Mercedes. I don't think we're going to have time to do all 40 cars on the grid, but we'll give it a go. Jeffrey Smale and Max Calder on row 6, Blake McCord, Trevor Andrusco back in 13th and 14th, Reed Sweeney, the number 9, Ben Varner, the number 3, down in 16th, Wes Duchek and Hunter Fox, Harry Herndon and Jason Drescher rounding out the top 20. Kyler Rowe and Gene Thayer, the 11th row, Chris McCoy, Andrew Balthez on row 12. Dexter Nakeen and Matt Hart, row 13. Jonathan Patterson and Zach Buchanan are 27th and 28th. Justin Atchison, 29th, alongside David Nadeau in P30. P31 is Josh Olson. P32, Austin Olds. Ryan Thomas in 34th. Is the last car to set a time. Interestingly, there is no 33rd car from qualifying, which we'll take a look at here. Nevertheless, it'll be Adam Walker, Adam Maxwell, Eric Johnson, and Nikita Panaris, as well as Gavin Bailiff, rounding out the field around the back.
Worth noting that Nikita Panaris was our highest climber at Okayama, and again, he's starting 39, so I'm guessing they're going for a similar survival run through the mayhem. Also worth noting, we were just talking about various pace cars. To me, it looks like the Audis are actually pretty strong here. There's a large, most all of the Audis in the field. In fact, every Audi that set a time, I believe, is in the top 12. And then a bank of Mercedes AMGs behind. It could be that despite having smaller numbers, the Audis are certainly they're right up there as one of the stronger cars in the field. We have one BMW Z4 in the top 20, which is Davey Hamilton Jr. in 7th place, worth keeping an eye on. And the top Ferrari is languishing down in 28th place, Zach Buchanan, who I believe we saw having some trouble in qualifying. Not a strong show for the Ferrari so far, but let's see how they come through the field.
Race director Jason Burgess, I think, coming through on the broadcast there. Yeah, Alex Gomes on the front row again, alongside the number 333 of Brendan Baker, and they will lead the field down into Big Bend here in just a few moments' time behind the Porsche pace car, which will peel off as soon as we come through turn 7, the last right-hand swings onto the front straight. Mercedes on the left, Audi on the right. The second row is exactly reversed. Audi on the left, Mercedes on the right. BMW, the only one, or one of the only ones in the field, is Andre. I believe it's Andre Azzolini. I know it's Davey Hamilton. We get a green flag, and round 1 of the USACkarting.com Invitational eSeries is green. Alex Gomes and Brendan Baker absolutely side by side, and into Big Ben. There's contact in the just at the front of the field, and it's bounced Andrew Pinkerton onto the grass, the outside of turn 1, and he is going to lose something like 20 spots before he can get back onto the track. Now he swings on the outside of the curb, pulls onto the tarmac again, but he is well down the order.
Jason Drescher, Kyle Bray at the back of the field, and we've already had a reset, unfortunately, for Ryan Thomas 6. So Ryan Thomas in the Ben & Jerry's car. So a lot of cars in trouble early.
Yeah, this has been a brutal start, all things considered. Alex Gomes is back to third. It's Brendan Baker who's taken the lead after lap 1. And Gomes is off on driver's left, coming off the final corner, just out in front of Nick Rowland. He slides back onto the track, but he's going to lose third to that Audi R8 LMS in satellite colors. So it's Baker, Rich Eisen, Roland Gomez, and then Andre Azzolini is the teal and white Audi you see back there in 5th behind the red Mercedes.
Davey Hamilton losing 2 places coming into turn 1 there to Matt Strand and Hugh. Looked like he was just taking things conservatively, which is a good approach considering how chaotic we're expecting the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, all things considered, that first lap actually wasn't too bad. It was a little messy in sort of the middle of the top portion of the field, so that sort of 8th through 12th bracket until we got through turn 3. But for the most part, as we get a look at Wes Duchak in the pit lane, for the most part, it was a clean start at the top, just some self-inflicted wounds, in particular there for Alex Gomes.
Chance Kelly as well for Pride in the Audi R8 as it entered the pits. He spun off of the exit curb at the last corner at the end of the first lap. There's another car in trouble.
Yeah, that grass bites on the outside of the exit curb there, Scott, like you're talking about. The car's already loaded up, and if you haven't got the car straightened out before you drop that wheel, if you end up having to, there's a good chance the car's going to snap around on you. Really nowhere to.
Yeah, absolutely, especially on the cold tyres on lap 1. It doesn't even take the grass, just the curbs on cold tyres can be as few of our drivers have found. Looks like everyone's got their tyre temperatures up now and are using the full extent of the track.
Yep, Brendan Baker, view out the back of Brendan Baker's Audi R8 LMS. The Pride number 333, a look at Justin Richezin, who ran second for most of the first race in Akiyama last week, before a self-inflicted wound took him off track and cost him a bunch of positions. But he certainly has the pace to compete up at the front of the field alongside the likes of Brendan Baker and Alex Gomes.
Number 92 there. 82 of Jeffrey Small has spun in front of the field and been collected.
Yeah, damage on the front end of that Mercedes, Scott, as you point out, it's number 82. And, Pinkerton just in behind him, I think, tried to squeeze by and had to jump on the brakes not to get into the back of the Mercedes.
It's a shame to see that because Jeffrey was having a great battle with Blake McCord and Reed Sweeney for that 8th position before he succumbed to the pressure and spun in turn 2.
Yeah, Hugh North following the number 72 Mercedes down into Big Bend, now running 7th. A strong start for Hugh after starting in P9, so he's picked up 2 positions. Blake McCord behind him has picked up 5 in the number 17, and Reed Sweeney in 9th has come up from 15th, so strong starts there for most of the cars at the bottom end of the top 10.
So after Alex Gomes has had a relatively weak start from the pole position, he's now down in 4th position, but is starting to pressure Nick Rowland, who in turn is also closing in, at least to my eye, on Justin Richardson. So we could end up with a 3-car battle in 3rd pretty soon. Yeah,
there's really nothing to choose between them in terms of lap time. If anything, Rowland is maybe the quicker, but just as I say that, Justin Richardson comes through a 48.331 last time around, which is just marginally quicker than Nick's quickest lap, 48.396. on board Nick Rowland as we come to the left-hander, watching him chase down Justin Richardson in the number 07.
This battle for 8th hasn't cooled down since we had that spinner. We've still got Reed Sweeney and Blake McCord nose to tail. Reed looks like he's the fastest in this pair, but needs to find a way through. It's so hard on this track. There's just no braking zones, so you really need to pressure the car in front into a mistake. Speaking of, we've got Mercedes number 72 of Hugh North has just had a off in the uphill right-hander.
Just talking about
he's heavily down. Yeah,
that's the Mac Minarelli Mercedes, the number 72, like you said. Has he gotten away with that, Scott?
I don't know. Initially, he looks like he was struggling for pace, but then he's just repassed Max Calder, who came through on him. So, no, that car seems to be fine. I didn't see the crash. I'll take a look back and try and work out what happened to him and assess how much damage he might have.
Incidentally, a spin for Wes Duchek in the number 34 Mercedes, just as the leaders came through the left-hander. And he's recovered. I don't think he hit anything. It's one of the few places you can have an off at Lime Rock and not hit anything. Granted, there's no place to catch the car because it's grass on either side, but at least you're going slowly enough and there's enough grass that you can get away without pranging it into the Armco. Ooh, 4 wheels off there for the number 07 of Justin Chesson down the front straightaway, and that might just be the opportunity for Nick Rowland. He's just a little too far back into the braking zone for Big Ben.
So, Human North overcorrected, unfortunately, a small slide on the uphill right-hander. Ended up in the tyres, but it actually wasn't as big a hit as you would expect. So hopefully he's got away with that. The car looks in reasonably decent condition. Currently running in 10th place. Coming up again behind Ben Varner, so making a nice recovery, getting himself back in all his ducks in a row and seeing if he can work his way back in the field.
Scott, we move back to the battle for 8th, Reed Sweeney and Ben Varner. I'm sorry, it's Blake McCord and Reed Sweeney. Reed is chasing down that number 17 Mercedes, and he's got down the inside on the way into West Bend. A clean move.
Yeah, you see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The only way you're going to make a pass on line is by forcing a mistake, and that was just a completely unfortunate error there from Blake McCord. We've got a spin for the BMW number 05. Ended up off on the inside of the uphill right-hander through the chicane. Well, through the chicane that we're not using. He's got away with it, I think, undamaged. Meanwhile, Hugh North has made that move on Ben Varner for 9th position.
He has down into braking for Big Ben.
Oh, big moment for Reed Sweeney there, number 9 Mercedes. He used the curb on the exit of turn 3, only to end up on the grass as the curb ended, and got a real big tank slapper on, but got away with it. He's on the grass again. He's really
yeah, there's a little bit of damage to the front of that Mercedes as well, Scott, but he's really, really pushing that car hard, and I think it's going to end up biting him.
Hard, and he's being overtaken now by Blake McCord.
Yeah.
That place again.
Yeah, that all started at the uphill. He was off rhythm from the time he came through that right-hander up over the grass, and it cost him pace all the way through onto the front straight.
I'm wondering if he's been off rhythm since he made the pass. Quite often, you spend 5 or 6 laps behind the car and you get into the rhythm of following them, and then as soon as you get your own fresh air, you get a little bit more downforce in front of the car. It handles completely differently, pushing on, trying to catch the next group, and you end up making more mistakes than you would have done if you were still behind. So yeah, here he is back behind Blake McCord. He's got to do it all over again. Yeah,
you could see it immediately as soon as he got behind Blake. He had settled back into a rhythm. He was hitting the apexes again, just clipping the curbs where it was appropriate and getting much, much better and cleaner runs off of the corners. The problem is, as you've mentioned a couple times, Scott, there's no brake. So even if you are in that rhythm, you're relying on the car in front of you to make a mistake. And when you were the one that just did it, you sort of shot yourself in the foot. You now have to wait to capitalize on somebody else's error rather than making a smart move yourself.
The leaders have gone through a bit of traffic already and are starting to approach the real body of the midfield. We've got David Nadeau a couple of seconds ahead of Brendan Baker right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects things. As we've been saying all along, it's not easy to make passes around here. So even when it's lapped cars. Oh, and a spin for the number 2 of Josh Olsen in Mercedes. That's down at turn 3.
Yeah, we saw that actually. We were on board with, I think it wasn't Ben Varner, but we were on board as we came through the right-hander there at turn 3, and you could see the blue Mercedes nose into the tires on driver's left. which was sort of an odd place to end up. But he's done some damage to the front of that car, and we'll have to sort of hobble it back to the pit lane. In the meantime, back with the leaders following Justin Richardson as they work through the first bit of lap traffic, just coming up on 10 minutes complete. It's only taken them 12 laps to get this far.
Yeah, it's interesting that battle for second I was anticipating never really materialised. Alex Gomes, who had pace for pole position, hasn't been able to convert that into a real charge on the two satellite drivers ahead, who are themselves now closing in on Brendan Baker, who looked like he made a clean break early on. So yeah, maybe we'll end up with a 4-car battle for the lead at this rate.
It's certainly going to be limited to those 4. I think they've certainly separated themselves from Andrea Zellini back there in 5th, and within the 2.5-second margin from 1st to 4th, it's just Baker, Richardson, Roland, and Alex Gomes. But, like you said, they're not really following each other that closely. I don't know that that's entirely intentional. They certainly seem to be pushing just as hard as ever. But it's going to be tough for any of them to make a move or capitalize on somebody else's error because they're just not close enough. Oh, man, these Mercedes up over the top of the uphill, the front end lifts off. I would say ever so slightly, but that's really not even accurate. It's big air up over the top of the crest. And if you've not got the wheel perfectly straight, it seems like the car just carries slightly to the left, and it's super sketchy.
Had another off from Perry Herndon in the number 28 Mercedes, unfortunately. Looks like he's about to recover on the back straight, but I say another. I saw him crash. Oh yeah, that car is
crapping. I think it's the right word. Yeah.
I think he'll be making a trip to the pits. He was just in. I think he was about 16th, 17th. Before that, yeah, he needs to take this easier. He's going to start wiping out lead cars. Yeah, just right in the way there.
Yeah, I think they've made contact there as they came through West Bend, Scott.
Yeah, that's not intelligent driving, if I'm honest. Prefer to see. There you go. At least he's decided to take the alternative route back to the pits at this point.
Yeah, part of the struggle, Scott, is when you're dealing with a 1.5 mile track and 40 cars, the traffic density is immense, and finding some clear space to recover the car is extremely challenging. Really, your best bet is to get off track. Again, the margins are already very slim here.
At the very least, drive at a pace that you can keep the car under control.
Yes.
It's not fair to risk the race. Once you've already ruined your own race, it's not really fair to risk the races of guys who are having a lead lap run. So hopefully Perry will get himself fixed back on track and able to salvage something today.
Following Max Calder now back in P12 on the number 22 Audi R8 LMS up through the uphill, following Ben Varner in the number 350 Mercedes. And Andrew Pinkerton just ahead of him in the number 77, I think.
We have two Satellite Racing Mercedes. Well, they're not actually. They're in different cars. Satellite Racing Mercedes and Audi have closed up slightly. Nick Rowland's putting Justin Richardson on this crash, although the reason for that is that Justin Richardson is right behind Brendan Baker, who seems to be holding him up.
Off for Jason Drescher, Scott, up over the uphill. It's a Mercedes again. And if I had to guess, in the number 38, he came up over the top of that crest, and the car just took off. And as it landed, it would have swerved to the left and carried him into the barriers. Significant damage to the front end of the car back in P29.
He actually didn't make it as far as the crest. It was in the compression.
Oh, interesting.
He got collected quite badly by Austin Olds in the black Mercedes. Oh, sorry. That's not Austin Olds, is it? Yes, it is. In the number 4 Jack Daniels. So Austin is going to be struggling. Oh, and then he a lot of stuff going on there. 2 more Mercedes that he actually managed to overtake immediately after collecting the car at the top of the hill.
We've got a block down into West Bend, and I'm afraid to say that was a lap car who kind of threw a fade on Alex Gomes on the way into the braking zone, and it's cost Gomes a bit of time getting through West Bend. Justin Richardson now following Brendan Baker. We're on board with the number 07 Mercedes, and Baker is going to get held up here in traffic through West Bend. And look at Richardson on the brake. Closes up more than half the gap by the time they get to the first apex of the right-hander. And now Richardson is going to, I think he's going to get another little advantage here, because Baker's stuck in behind a Z4 through the right-hander and onto No Name Straight. Oh, Baker taps the brakes as they head up No Name Straight and into the right-hander at the uphill, and there's just no way through. Absolutely no way through. Richardson's got the head of steam. They come up over the crest, and there's a touch. Richardson to driver's left. Brendan Baker pulls to the right, and I think Richardson is going to be able to hold it on the outside. No, he's been touched. Baker forces him off track as they work behind the lap traffic, and it's pushed Richardson all the way back into third. He now has to defend from Gomes through the right-hander, and it's put Nick Rowland up into second behind the number 333.
That was some amazing racing right there.
That was so close.
Brilliant,
So close.
brilliant work by everyone keeping it on track. Unfortunate, of course, for Justin Richardson losing a couple of places there, but held on ahead of Alex Gomes.
Yeah, and not nearly as costly as it was last week when some plenty of time, and obviously about 2 seconds number 333 in the 67. The nature of racing around Lime Rock is that you can lose and gain 2 seconds in the blink of an eye.
Spin there for the number 24 of Chris McCoy, ended up on the inside of turn 3. He's got himself back going again. He's running 20th place.
Yeah, a little damage to the front of that Mercedes now as well, and I think we probably say that for more than half the cars in the field by the feel of things.
Yep, but not the leaders. They've managed to keep themselves pretty clean. We've got Brendan Baker and Nick Rowland right together.
Yeah, Richardson is coming back up on the back of that Z4 that sort of cost him a little bit earlier. I think that's Hunter or Andrew Balthas, perhaps, that they're lapping. And the lead two have gotten through, but I think Richardson is going to get held up a little bit again by the same car for the second time in about 3.
It's Chris McCoy off again on the outside of turn 1, just taking evasive action. He did actually manage to find his way back up to 18th place before making that mistake. Once again, he's got himself straightened out. He's back underway.
Apologies for the lack of replays, incidentally. I know we're describing a lot of what's happening around the track, but such is the nature of GT3 racing around Lime Rock. Richardson makes the move past that lapped BMW Z4 as he went to the inside. They sort of crossed paths just past the apex, and Richardson has got through, but that was a sketchy moment on the brakes and headed towards the apex of Big Bend. The top 4 now together on track, separated by about 1.5 seconds between them, but there's no lap cars now, and hopefully the 4 of them can put them
34 in the. He was in the middle of being lapped by a bunch of cars, including Hugh North, I believe. Has ended up on the outside of turn 1 in the grass, just got him way too hot. Presumably confused myself.
Yeah, he's there with Chris McCoy. Yeah, he's there with the number 24 of Chris McCoy there, and McCoy's not having the best of the night for sure. On board with Blake McCord now. This is back in P7. In behind. Oh no, he's P8 now. Reed Sweeney is, I think, just made that. Yeah, he has. Yeah, they're back and forth over the last couple of laps, and for now at least, that Castrol Edge Mercedes AMG GT3
27 diving down the inside. Makes a move into turn 1 for 12th place.
Called her one of the satellite drivers, I believe.
Yeah,
to Nick Rowland. Yep. Okay. 18 minutes in now, and 21 laps completed. So we've got another 12 minutes to kind of suffer through here. Not at all the correct word, but it's been so frantic since the drop of the green flag. Exactly what we expected.
I imagine it's suffering for almost all of these drivers at this point. This is one of those tracks where time just doesn't go by. Just had a spin. I missed who it was. The time disappeared about coming out of turn 3.
It's over as quickly as it starts, Scott.
Yeah. Unlike this race for these drivers. As I say, what lap are we on? We're on lap 23 right now. So, and we've still, as you say, we've still got 11.5 minutes to go. So, one of those tracks where you feel like you've done about half an hour and you look at the clock and it's 5 minutes.
As you can see now on board with Nick Rowland.
There's
big gaggle of cars in front.
Brendan Baker really badly right now by the.
There's contact with the two spun.
That's a result of that hold up for Brendan Baker. Nick Rowland just not being patient enough there. Big damage for Brendan Baker on the rear.
Yeah, and Richezin and Gomes now inherit the lead duo, and it looked like Gomes was going to make an effort to get through the left-hander, but I think Richardson clipped one of the
Yeah,
speed.
it's Richardson who clipped Brendan Baker, so he's going to have the same level of damage as Brendan. That car can't be straight after.
No, and you can see he's on the brakes through West Bend. And just like that, I think this is going to put Alex Gomes into the lead if Richardson can't hang on.
Richardson's steering wheel looks relatively straight from the inside, so it's probably just aero damage.
Yeah, he is, but he's lacking speed down the front straight. Gomes to the inside.
It's not even attempting. Oh, contact! And Richardson is off into the grass.
Yeah, Gomes is spinning as well. He's off to driver's right. We just jumped back in a short replay there, but it's Gomes to the inside. He recovers, and I think this has put Andre Azzolini into the lead.
It has, the other Pride car. So, yeah, the traffic takeaway from Brendan Baker and gives it to his teammate Andre Azzolini in the end.
Yeah, and this is the move from Gomes down to the inside. Gomes sort of... Richardson sort of faded right. Gomes was already there, and I think Gomes adjusted more than he needed to avoid Richardson fading towards the apex. He clipped the curb, and once he bounced back to driver's left, the contact was made, and there was nothing either of them could do to save it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Brendan. All Gomes needed to do was hold his ground. And,
yeah, absolutely.
It would have been Richardson bouncing off him into the grass, but he overcorrected into the curb and ended up bouncing back and spinning. We've got a problem there for Max Calder, who we were just talking about. He was on the edge of the top 10 in the satellite car. God, it's all going wrong for satellite all of a sudden.
Well, you say that, Scott, but Nick Rowland is back in second.
So Max Calder, he's run over Josh Olsen, who's been trying to rejoin the track and done it, and basically lost the Mercedes in the grass. Come back straight into the side of Calder, who really wasn't giving him the margin necessarily under a yellow flag, if I'm honest. But that has dropped Calder back quite a bit now. He's running in position. Oh, sorry, that's Josh Olsen. Lost Max Calder, but he's certainly lost some places from the 12th place he was in earlier.
Yeah, we just saw the replay of the incident there, and apologies we didn't have the call on the replay. Just working through the limitations of iRacing, but keeping up with the racing at the front of the field. The interesting thing here is
off again in the number 2 car, rejoins somewhat dangerously.
Rowland's through into the lead on Azzolini, and I was going to make a point there that with things having shaken out the way they were, Azzolini had fallen back from the lead 4. And I think it was going to give Rowland the opportunity to put some really quick laps in and clear traffic and make the gap up to Azzolini. It's already happened.
Apologies for that.
And we're back.
Apologies for that.
Apologies for that. In any case, we've got 7.5 minutes to go, and I don't know if we got it just before the interruption there, but Rowland's through into the lead on Azzolini by virtue of just being that little bit quicker, and it's put Satellite into P1 in the Audi, Azzolini in the Pride number 15 back in second, and Richardson, the first of the Mercedes, back in third. Now, one of the interesting things is, nope, this is Baker slow down the front straightaway. That was our P2 starter, and unfortunately, he's at a torrid race. He's back in 16th now, 2 laps down.
Yeah, he's had to pit for damage repairs after that crash with Nick Rowland and Justin Richardson. So, yeah, as you say, he's dropped laps. He's just going to be getting to the finish now.
Yeah, he's done the right thing there and let both of the leaders through. You could make a case that maybe there's a team game to play there with Rowland being one of the satellite entries, but no need for that. 30-minute sprints is really no need to play sort of team spoiler. And in any case, it's let Nick Rowland get away just a little bit, up to about a second now, back from Rowland to Azzolini.
It's still worth continuing on for Brendan Baker, though. He's only
for sure
out of our 40 starters, so that's not the worst result. And am I right in thinking that the grid for race 2 is based on the grid for race 1, anywhere behind the top 10? Is that still?
It is. So those in 11th, you're sort of battling for the first of the non-inverted spots. So if you finish 11th, you're going to be starting race 2 in P11.
Well, we might as well check in on P10 because that will be our pole sitter for race 2. It's Ben Varner, and he's got a gap on Gene Thayer, so no pressure there.
I'll tell you what, the big winner out of this invert might end up being a Trevor Andrisco back there in ninth. He's going to start on the front row if things stay as they are, and he's not wanting for pace for sure.
Looking at, there's actually surprisingly few drivers who have come from way deep in the field relative to what we were seeing at Yokoyama, considering that I think we can all agree it's been a bit more of a crazy race here today. That's slightly surprising. So everyone inside the top 10 started inside the top 16. We do have Gene Thayer, who is a good 7 seconds back from that 10th place, running 11th, having started 22nd. So that might be our, well, certainly one of our highest climbers in the field, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to sneak his way into that pole position for race 2. But there's still 5 minutes to go, which, as we've discussed, is plenty of time here at Lime Rock. Some crazy stuff to happen.
Absolutely, yep. For just under 5 minutes, and we'll probably get about 6 more laps in. We're 31 complete. And it's Audi at the front, and then a host of Mercedes all the way back through Hugh North in P8. Trevor Andrisco 9th, Ben Varner in 10th, as we've already discussed. You ride on board at the moment with Blake McCord in through West Bend, and a sliding Mercedes just cuts him off as he gets on the throttle through the penultimate right-hander, and it's a lap. Reed Sweeney just ahead of him, the number 9, to gap him as they come onto the front straightaway, and that might all have been all Reed Sweeney needed to make his escape and sort of get himself in a comfortable position for the last 4 minutes.
At the number 28 car of Perry Herndon off again at the top of the hill. The car looks undamaged, so hopefully he didn't hit anything. But,
yeah, there's a Z4 off to the... Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
I was just saying he's had a bit of an adventure today. That's definitely not his first off.
No, there's a handful of... The problem is once the car is damaged and it gets even harder to handle and drive straight, the more likely you are to make those mistakes again. And it makes your night look a lot worse than I think it actually is. Leader's coming up behind Perry Herndon now. I think it's Azzolini there in the number 15, pulls in behind him. Nick Rowland's already gone through. And I think Azzolini's backed off now. I think he's realized that Rowland's got more than enough pace up at the head of the field to make the escape from Azzolini, and he really has nothing to offer Azzolini in the battle for the win, and quite rightly, he's fallen now about 3.5 seconds off, and we'll let Rowland just cruise out front.
We've got the number 3 car of Hunter Fox in the pits in the Mercedes AMG. He was running 15th, but the car came in heavily damaged, so an incident for him late in the race, which is a real shame. That was 15th place would have been a nice starting position for him. For race
so
2.
Top 10 just at the moment. Rowland and Azzolini at the front, as we've talked about. Rich Eisen and Alex Gomes in 3rd and 4th. That battle really didn't develop the way I thought it might. Gomes certainly had pace, but not enough to be able to claw his way back onto the number 07 Mercedes. Matt Strand in 5th, Reed Sweeney 6th, as we've been following this battle with Blake McCord over the last couple laps.
It's actually
North is there in P8. Go ahead, Scott.
Matt Strand is actually significantly damaged because he was in that crash with Hunter Fox.
Oh, absolutely right, and it's Reed Sweeney who's on the back of Matt Strand now.
Yeah,
I think it's going to change hands in just a few seconds.
So just after I mentioned that Gene Thayer might be out of the top 10, again, one of our top 10 runners has a significant problem there with the lapped car.
Yeah,
I don't know if Matt's car is damaged enough to drop him out of that top 10.
Ooh, there's an accident up over the top of the crest.
It's extremely
I think that was one of the Mercedes.
Extremely similar to the crash he had with Hugh North.
Yeah,
the head had spun, and that part of the track has the barriers so close that there's really nowhere for the crash cars to go, so they end up right in the way. So it's going to be interesting to follow for the next 2 minutes. I think Matt Strand should be safe getting a top 10 position, so a good position for on the grid for the reverse grid, race 2. He's surviving.
Minute and it's left, and I think it'll be about 2 laps until we see a checkered flag for race 1 of the USACkarting.com Invitational eSeries from Lime Rock Park. You right on board with Reed Sweeney to round out our final lap here now as the leader is on.
Yeah, Reed Sweeney is right behind Matt Strand, and he actually has Blake McCord, I believe, right on his tail as well. So it's a 3-way battle for 5th here with the damaged Matt Strand leading.
We use the final lap up on the ticker at the top of the screen, so we wait for iRacing to decide if we're going to see a checkered flag or not. At the moment,
Nick Rowland's halfway around the lap with a minute to go, so I think one more lap.
Yep.
So we're on board now with Blake McCord. Again, on the back of this three-way battle for 5th place. He has a small gap over Hugh North, so he doesn't need to worry from behind, but we've got Reed Sweeney all over Matt Strand here, and Matt Strand's stuck behind a bang marker, so this is going to... the bang marker gets out of the way, so that's going to help Matt Strand.
Yeah, it's a fantastic trio here for 6th, 7th, and 8th.
These guys are just taking the white flag now.
I'm sorry, it's 5, 6, and 7. Yep, through for the white flag. As Scott mentions, Reed Sweeney dives on the brakes into Big Ben. He's right on the back of Matt Strand through the right-hander.
Meanwhile, Nick Rowland's coming around the last corner to take the checkered flag.
Absolutely correct. And for 2 races out of 2 now on the season, if you include last week, Nick Rowland is a winner in the USAC Karting Invitational eSeries. He takes race 1 at Lime Rock Park. Andre Ezzolini is going to come through in 2nd. Justin Richardson in P3 to round out the podium in the number 07. Gomes in 4th. Strand, well, we'll wait to see if he gets 5th.
He's been driving very cleanly while Reed Sweeney's been jumping over the curbs behind him, so I think he's going to hold on as he goes down the front straight.
I think Sweeney decided to send it there on the last lap and see if he could make anything happen or force Strand into a mistake, but it wasn't to be there. Matt holding on very, very nicely in a damaged car to round out the top 5.
And 10th place does in fact go to Ben Barnett, who's just coming across the line now. So Gene Thayer, who actually ended up a lap down, will miss out on that reverse grid, but still a great drive from 22nd on the grid. And right behind him was Andrew Bates. Oh, sorry, Balthers. Again, that's probably the wrong pronunciation, but he came through from 24th to 12th, and Ryan Thomas came through from 34th to 13th. So a trio of riders there who made a big jump up from their qualifying positions.
An opportunity to catch our breaths here, I think. That was, I think, even far more frantic than I had anticipated. So much happening every single lap, never mind just the positional battles, but then keeping track of mistakes and incidents off to the side of the track. It's just absolutely wild.
You know,
Nick Rowland comes through.
For the first half of the race, I was very impressed by how in order everything was. There were still obviously crashes, particularly on the first lap, but it went absolutely crazy for that last 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was actually really...
Obviously punctuated by the crash between Brendan Baker and Nick Rowland, taking long-time race leader Brendan Baker, well, not out of the race because he managed to salvage a 14th, which means that he can certainly target top 5 in race 2 from there. But yeah, pretty crazy stuff in the last 10 minutes.
An additional twist from last week, we mentioned Room 2 operating sort of in sync with Room 1 for the cars that didn't make it into through pre-qualifying, let's say, into the top 40. What it's allowed for is for 2 drivers to transfer from Room 2 into the main show for Race 2 in Room 1. So what we're going to see in race number 2, starting from the back of the grid, is Nikita Panaris and Tim Swiggett. Now, Panaris from last week actually had pretty good pace. And even though he'll be starting at the back of a 42-car field, I think there's an opportunity there for Nikita to make some ground and sort of have a decent showing through the second of the 30-minute duels.
Yeah, he was a survivor last week. I'm a bit surprised, actually, because he was listed on the start for this race, so I was expecting him to be in race 1, but yeah, definitely didn't turn a lap. But yeah, it'd be good to see him take to Lime Rock for race 2 and see if he can pull off the same kind of top 10 heroics as he did at Okayama last week.
Yeah.
Shots until we can replay.
So race 1 completed. Gives us a chance to sort of catch our breaths here and get ready for race 2. As we mentioned, it'll be a top 10 invert of the top. Well, it's an invert of the top 10 from race. That'll set for the second of our 30-minute heats to come in hopefully just a couple of minutes' time.
So presumably I need to change server, don't I?
Yes, we all do. In the meantime, I think what we'll do is we'll take a quick break here on DriversEye Live, allow all the server changes to take place that need to take place, let our producer get everything caught up and into the second server, and we'll be back with you in a couple of moments' time after, again, we catch our breath, grab some water, and get to do it all again. 30 more minutes to come from Lime Rock Park for the usetkarting.com Invitational eSeries. Happy to have your company. We'll be back in a few. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the usetkarting.com Invitational eSeries. DriversEye Live, myself, Brendan Kazmarek, alongside Scott Michaels, albeit from some distance. Joseph Mudrak again on producing Race 2 of Round 1 from Lime Rock Park. 40 GT3 cars for half an hour, and we're just in the dying minutes of warm-up. Scott, it was quite a race one, quite the end to race one.
It was indeed, yeah. We got through the first half of it relatively clean, at least in the front half of the field. But yeah, it was all triggered by Brendan Baker, our race leader, for about 20 minutes there, catching a slower car through turn 1, and Nick Rowland basically running him over and causing a mayhem. I think the entire top 4 were at least temporarily wiped out at that point, and from then on, it was chaos until the end of the race. We got our top 10 through, flipped over for race 2, so that should make things fun again. Might just trigger off some chaos from lap 1. But yeah, and we've also got drivers at least from the alternate race who've been shuffled through. I don't know if you want to mention Brendan.
Yeah, we did just at the end of race 1. It's Nikita Panaris and Tim Swiggett who will move up in a promotion sort of style. We haven't relegated anybody, but we've added 2 more, so it'll be a 42-car grid. Panaris, of course, was in Room 1 last weekend in the race we broadcast from Okayama. I'm sorry, last week. It was Wednesday, wasn't it? And he's got some pace, just got locked out of Room 1, even though he had pre-qualified for it, and he won the race anyway, so of the grid for race 2. As Scott mentioned, what we're going to do is invert the top 10 from race 1, and then 11 through the back will be set by the race 1 finishing positions. So the fastest drivers, and Nick Rowland was certainly among the fastest 4 at the front of the field before the race kind of exploded with about 10 minutes to go. He'll actually be starting at the back of the top 10, back there with Alex Gomes and Justin Richardson and Andrea Zellini. And it'll really, really shake things up for a little while, in particular because, as we saw in race 1, there's quite a bit of carnage that can happen really anywhere in the field, but once you get back from about 6, things get very chaotic very quickly at turn.
Yeah, absolutely. I think however, we did see that our entire top 10 was made up of starters from the top 16, so that shows that at least those guys were somewhat keeping it in order, and we did, if we were seeing cars that started in that top 10, top 15, causing mayhem, we would have seen more cars come through from the 20s. So hopefully the top 10 that we've had inverted are really sort of the guys who have really sorted these cars out and got a handle on them, and we'll see some really great racing as that whole group should stay together and have the faster guys, so the Nick Rowlands, the Justin Richardson, coming through from further back there. And then we've also, of course, got Brendan Baker, who was unfortunately came off worse out of that top 4, which all came together with about 10 minutes to go, and he's starting 14th, I believe. So yeah, we've got to see if he can get onto the back of the guys he was racing in race 1, so Alex Gomes, Justin Richardson, and Nick Rowland, and come through the pack with them. And yeah, let's see how things end up.
Yeah, as we reach the end of warm up, I think if we're going to pick somebody out that might be in the strongest position, it might be somebody like Alex Gomes. We saw that the leaders were sort of strung out front to back. Certainly the top 4 without any real way through to make a move, and that's not to say that any one of them couldn't make a pass. They were just so evenly matched that by the time they did get strung out and into a line, it was going to be really tough for any one of them to pick up a couple of positions. I think whoever ends up at the front of that little crowd, if they were those that the 10 off per lap, they might be in the strongest position at the end of the 30 minutes. sort of their own pace grouping stuck behind them, and it would seem at the start at least that Alex Gomes might be exactly that guy. But of course, anything can happen on these first couple of laps, and well, it'll take probably three or four to really get an idea of how the race is going to set.
Yeah, but anything can happen in those first 3 or 4. I'm particularly looking at the crest of the hill after turn 4. That's the area towards the end of the race there, we saw a lot of lapped cars. Matt Strand got caught in a crash with a lapped car spinning and bouncing off a barrier in front of him. We saw that happen a handful of times. So that on lap 1, I think we got quite lucky last time, but you know what happens with luck. It tends to go one way and then the other. So let's see. Fingers crossed we don't have a complete pile up there, but we certainly. I'm predicting some action anyway.
Certainly a different looking grid to the start of race 1 as we'll have here in race 2. 30 minutes. So we set out on the formation lap. Very short, obviously, here, but this will take us through to about 9:15 tonight and the final checkered flag. Don't think we mentioned this at the end of race 1 or just the start of race 2, but Nick Rowland, having won race 1 of the USACkarting.com Invitational eSeries tonight, brings in another $100 credit towards his entry at the Simcraft 24 Hours of Orlando in 2021. So he's doubled up on that now to start his eSeries campaign, which is wonderful.
Start. Everybody have a good race. Watch yourselves on the first lap here. Let's get one in the book.
Once again, the voice of race director Jason Burgess, reminding everybody to not be stupid, but this is Lime Rock and these are GT3 cars, so we'll see what happens over the first couple of laps here, particularly with the inverted
we've
top
got
10.
A crash already. It's the number 4 car, has connected with the 77, and they've both got significant damage.
Yeah, this is towards the back of, it's not towards the back of the field, this is the midfield, Andrew Pinkerton and Matt Hart. As we get back to the front anyway, up to the green flag down the Sam Posey Straight. It's in the air but not waving. It is now. And Ben Varner gets a massive jump on the inside down the front straightaway. He's going to be a second or more clear of the field into the braking zone for turn number 1. I think it's Hugh North who slotted in behind him. It is the number 72 Mac Minarelli Mercedes.
Andrea Azzolini also got a big jump off the start.
Yeah, that inside, it was the outside run that just didn't go when the green flag came out, or the outside line, excuse me, and everybody to driver's right got a huge jump to the tune of probably at least 3 rows. Ben Varner had about a second. Go ahead, Scott.
67 car had a spin coming out of turn 3.
That's Nick Rowland. That's the winner from race 1.
Yeah, that's a big development. He's going to have a really hard time coming through this field.
This is exactly what we mentioned, where anywhere back from about 5th or 6th, your chances of being involved in an incident on lap 1 go up immensely. Hunter Fox is in the pit lane. The leader, Ben Varner, back with you live now, jumps to driver's right into the braking zone. Hugh North into the... Oh, he's touched him! And Varner is off down the escape road. I think he's going to keep it out of the tire barrier, but that contact in the braking zone from Hugh North into the back of Ben Varner has taken Varner straight out of the lead and promoted now, I think it's Trevor Andrusco in the number 99 to P1.
We also had another big incident at turn 1. It was Gene Thayer getting completely run over by Max Calder, who was trying to go around the outside of Jeffrey Small into turn 1. The 3 of them just... Gene was perhaps taking things a little bit easy, and Max was not. Straight into the back of him, and Max and Gene, unfortunately, picking up significant damage.
Yeah, one of the challenges of starting with an inverted grid as we look at Gene Thayer in the pit lane, in particular, is the fact that you're going to have a number of drivers who, let's say, are taking it easy because either they've started further back or, they're... Yep, go ahead.
We got Justin Richardson attacking Alex Gomes. Alex managed to hold him off on that occasion, but these two are running really close.
Battle for P5. We're also looking at Nikita Panaris and Chance Kelly, who are back in 13th and 14th into turn number 1. Panaris slides wide, and he's into the grass. Is he going to keep it off the wall? I think he's just. Might keep it straight as well. He has. Well held by Nikita. Anyway, my point is drivers coming back through the field after, let's say finishing 1st or 2nd in 9th or 10th, they're going to be on a much bigger charge than somebody who's braking.
And Justin Richardson makes the move now on Alex Gomes, forces him onto the grass at the penultimate corner.
Very good.
That's going to be an important battle to look at because these were 2 of our fastest drivers from race 1. So, and of our sort of top 4 or 5 fastest cars from race 1, they are currently running the highest, with Richardson now taking 5th place.
Yeah, Brendan Baker, fastest lap of the race, so 48.498.
Yeah, Trevor Andrusco has gone into the grass at turn 1, the number 99 Mercedes.
And another Mercedes off behind him, I think. Black and red Mercedes.
He's had a bit of an adventure. He was involved with the Gene Thayer Max Calder crash, and now he's gone off on his own there. Got a bit of damage.
Petronas Mercedes spinning in the back. That's Hunter Fox again, fresh out of the pit lane.
Hunter Fox has had a really difficult day so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, incidentally, as we pick up Matt Strand coming through West Bend and through the downhill, I think he's the big benefactor out of all this. It'll be up into P2 now for Matt. Hugh North is out in front, owing to Trevor Andrusco's off at Big Bend on the last lap. So it's North, Strand, McCord, who spent most of last race embroiled in a battle for roughly P6 or 7. He's in third now. Justin Richardson fourth, as you mentioned, in a battle with Alex Gomes.
Sorry, Richardson makes his pass on McCord there into turn 2, so that's an important one for Richardson. Trying to get through the field, but Gomes is going to follow straight away, doing the over-under on Blake McCord through turn 3, although he's not actually...
Is he going to complete the move?
It's brilliant defense around the outside by McCord there, and an intelligent move by Gomes, not trying to pull that off with the...
Yeah, let's stick with this, because Richardson has got a lot of pace now. He's on the back of Matt Strand as they come through the downhill, and if Strand is able to drive as defensively as he was towards the end of race 1, even with a damaged car, this could get very, very interesting very quickly and stay that way for a long time if these let's say, the top 6 are stuck together just like they are. Just the same, Hugh North is going to be able to get away because I think he's got quite a bit of pace over Matt Strand, and it's going to let him jump. Right now, it's about a second and a half.
In for the number 29, that's Dexter Quinn. He was running 8th into turn 1. He's ended up in the grass. He's going to drop down to somewhere in the region of 12th place.
Richardson is through, Scott, into P2.
Well, that's
Matt Strand falls back to, I'm sorry, P1. Hugh North is gone. He's heading off. And the car looked initially a little low at the left rear, like maybe he's been in the wall. He definitely has been in the wall. There's a bunch of damage to the front left of that car.
Unfortunately, he caught Austin Olds in a really awkward place in turn 3 and basically just ran him over. And as he hit him, it kind of bounced off and ended up in the tyre barrier on the outside of the corner.
So just like that, Justin Richardson has taken 7 laps now, and 5 minutes to go from P7 to P1, where he spent most of the, or at least in the realm of where he spent most of race 1.
Sadly, Hugh North's suspension looks pretty badly bent. So
yeah, it looked that way straight off the bat.
I think it's going to be difficult to make up fast.
Out the back of Alex Gomes now, looking at Blake McCord through West Bend. They're nose to tail there in the battle for P4 as it is now. McCord sits ahead of them in third in the number 17 Mercedes.
That's like Audi now coming into pits. I'm not sure why. His car looks undamaged. He left the pits on the previous lap as well, so maybe he got a penalty.
And which Audi is this, Scott?
This is number 22 of Max Calder.
Okay, very good.
May have now left it looks like he's left the race. He's had enough.
Yeah.
He was, as I said before, he'd run into the back of Gene Thayer earlier, so he was well down the field.
Leaders catching a couple of cars in lap traffic now. Justin Richardson has not made it through on the first of them as they make their way through the uphill.
And big contact behind. I think, was that Alex Gomes?
It was Alex Gomes. He's absolutely, well, he was dead stick there briefly, but now he's recovered to the driver's right as they come out of the uphill. He's tagged the barrier on the way through, and I think that car's crabbing as well. That car is not well at all. Alex Gomes was P3.
Again, he was showing patience and restraint, trying to let the crash in front of him sort itself out, but unfortunately Brendan Baker just didn't see it behind that massive Mercedes rear end and just ran him over.
We were on board there with Baker as all that was going on, and you could see them catching the traffic just up ahead coming into the uphill, and I think that the pace differential was just so great that as Baker goes through now on the inside of Matt Strand on the run-up no-name straight, Strand's going to try and hang tough on the outside, but not so much luck. That car is damaged as well, the number 25 Mercedes of Matt Strand.
Gomes takes the fast repair and is now leaving the pits, but he's going to be down in the late teens, I think. So a lot of work for him to do in the remaining 22 minutes. Is it 22 minutes? Sorry, my beats cut.
Strand's made a mistake. He's dropped a wheel on the outside of the final corner. But I think he's got away without hitting anything, which is absolutely remarkable. Blake McCord just snuck through on the inside as they came up towards the pit entrance and was able to take third. So now your top three are Richardson, Baker, and McCord. We've obviously lost Strand. We've lost Alex Gomes. We lost Roland earlier on. So all the drivers we would have expected to see at the front of the top 10 based on where we started the race have fallen by the wayside. And now it's just a handful of those who have survived the carnage, so to speak.
You say that, but it's two of our front runners from race one. It's just Brendan Baker who have ended up coming up to the shuffle at the top. So this could be a really good fight. Let's hope Brendan Baker doesn't run anyone else over as we go through the race. Although there's 3.6 seconds separating the two, so it might be a tough ask for Baker to catch Richardson at this point.
And that was going to be my point. This is the major difference from race 1 to race 2, at least at this stage of the race, just over 8 minutes in, excuse me, is that Richardson now has some clear air. There's no pressure from behind. He may not have clear air, with regards to traffic, but he's not being hounded by anybody behind him. He can focus up front, straight out the windshield, no need to look in the mirror. And 4 seconds back to Baker. Go ahead.
Nadu is not playing ball with letting him through, although Nadu now does. Goes over the grass and ends up in the tyres. He's come back on the track. Luckily, everyone behind has managed to miss him. That was Ben Varner and then Brendan Baker. Nadu's now reversing his way back towards the racetrack. Let's hope he's sensible about this rejoin. He's going to be. Hopefully he can get himself back underway, get a fast repair and carry on. But yeah, our leaders were pretty lucky to get away with that one there. I think Richardson was flashing his lights as they came up over the hill and scared him off the track a little bit. But yeah, no harm done.
We pick up Perry Herndon now in the Sour Patch Kids Mercedes, in behind Matt Strand. Herndon, after an absolutely torrid race 1, is 8th.
Do we know where Herndon finished in race 1? We do, because it's grid position for this race. So yeah, that was a 20th place finish. And yeah, as you said,
absolutely.
2 or 3 times we picked him up as being in the barrier. It wasn't just race.
Same to be said of Pinkerton, by the way, who, despite starting 28th after a sort of an eventful race 1, is now P10 and chasing down Andrew Balthes for P9. He's got plenty of pace. He's several tenths of a second a lap quicker than most of the cars immediately ahead of him. As he's got a spin at turn 1.
Down the escape route in turn 1, and they're all trying.
And Hugh North.
They're both trying to do 3-point turns by the looks of things.
Yeah, very interesting, these two, because were they not the two that ended up making nose-to-tail contact at turn 1?
Very possible.
That they were on about lap 2.
I was getting distracted there by Hugh North. Oh, a big spin for Nick Rowland, who is down in 13th place, but was on the comeback trail. He won't be now. He's way out in the field at the outside of turn 2.
Yeah, this race not turning up roses for Roland.
He did do that all by... Oh, did he do that all by himself? No, he didn't. He got punted by Andrea Azzolini. There's no other word for it, I'm afraid. Roland had that line covered and Azzolini just ran straight into it.
That was not small contact either. Just saw that on the replay. And you're absolutely right. A good punt up the back, and it sent Roland spinning. Azzolini continued really without any damage from the looks of things.
Dexter Quinn was able to take advantage of it, although he has since lost that place to Azzolini. So yeah, Dexter Quinn in trouble on this lap.
I've been told it's Nakan, for what that's worth. Yep, on board with Pinkerton, who gives a black Ferrari a decent shove as they come through the right-hander and onto no-name straight, and crumples the front of the number 77 Mercedes. He's now going to go chase down... Actually, I think... Was that Andrisco? No, he's still chasing down it. Yep.
Just to finish the story on Nakran, sorry, I've already forgotten how to pronounce that. He spun himself in turn 3 and then got run into by Jeffrey Small, who was a lap behind him. I need to work out how that name's pronounced as well. I'm going to go with Small. But yeah, those two Mercedes ended up stopped in the grass on the outside of turn 3 for a little while. So it's a shame for Dexter Nakran. Again, butchered that name. But yeah, he's now down to 20th position from just outside the top 10.
Just about 13 minutes in, 12 to 13 minutes into race 2 now.
Oh, we got Justin Richardson off the inside of the penultimate corner with a wide car.
It's not Baker, but Baker is damaged. I think Baker's got damage. He had... Oh, that car's destroyed. Baker's car is absolutely destroyed into the pit lane. I have no idea what happened there. I'm sure we'll get a replay here in a couple of moments' time. There's very little left of the front end of that Audi.
It was Justin Atchison who was the Pride car, but he didn't cause the issue. Looks like Hunter Fox. Looks like, yeah, it was Hunter Fox again losing it. And then just the leaders absolutely piling in. Brendan Baker actually got the worst of that with a tertiary impact, really. I think Hunter Fox has a few questions to be answered if the stewards look back through some replays of this race, these two races. He's been absolutely all over the place all evening, but yeah, unfortunately, he's just absolutely wiped out the top two in this race. That's Blake McCord with a not very comfortable lead on the Ben and Jerry's car of Ryan Thomas. They have a 6-second gap on Justin Richardson, apparently, but no.
Richardson's in the pits. It's going to be Trevor Andruska,
who was our early leader. So Trevor's managed to come back through despite taking a big whack on the tyre wall on the exit of turn 3. It's Andrew Boltez in our top BMW, and then Perry Herndon is running top 5 after Brendan made the point that he had a difficult race 1 and 20th place starting grid for race 2. He's now all the way up into the top 5 after the absolute chaos we've had from some errant lap cars, unfortunately.
Yeah, Pinkerton in 6th now after starting 28th. And really for all of these cars, Balthas, Herndon, and Pinkerton, it's just been that sort of keep the nose clean and survive the carnage, and you'll find yourself in a decent position. And Driscoll, just to put the point on him, he started 2nd. He's in 3rd now, and you were quite right to say he's led, but that absolutely does not tell the story of his race.
We've got a 3-way fight for 7th place between Matt Strand, Andrea Azzolini, and Brendan Baker, and those the latter two there in Pride cars. Matt Strand running a Hatsune Miku. Painstaking for this. Azzolini loses it trying to duke and drive on the brakes, ends up in the grass. That's a bit of
two Pride cars there, and I thought they were about to take each other out. Just the way that was all sort of the way they were weaving back and forth. I think it was just Azzolini taking himself off, but that could have been a lot worse for the team than it really wound up being.
We've actually seen Balthus as well has obviously clearly made a mistake because he's ended up right in front of Brendan Baker and behind Matt Strand and Andrew Pinkerton. But Azzolini, we've seen him into that turn 2 being a bit wild. He punted Nick Rowland earlier in the race. I think he's got a little bit more patience might be required from that driver in the future. But yeah, we've got as I say, Balthus losing positions back to 7th place, which puts Perry Herndon up to 4th and Andrew Pinkerton up to 5th.
Yeah, taking a look at Andrew Balthus now, this I think will explain exactly why he ended up embroiled back in the battle with, just lost it through the left-hander and really all on his own. Didn't hit anything, but came to a stop on the inside of the apex, just to the left of the curb. That was all happening as Azzolini went off in the background, so this was last lap.
Side-by-side race for 10th position. It's Nikita Ponaris in the 311. He's just lost the place to Alex Gomes. Quick mention for Nikita, who, as predicted, has come through from 31st on the grid to running. He was in the top 10, he's just lost the place, but if he carries on like this, I'm sure he's going to end up well inside the top 10, as we saw it off the hour.
Yep, we pick up Andrew Pinkerton now, who's embroiled in a battle with Perry Herndon just ahead of him. This is the battle for P4, and Driscoll is pretty well checked out ahead, but these two Mercedes-AMG GT3s absolutely nose to tail through No Name Straight and into the uphill. Pinkerton, I think, ought to be faster, but he's carrying a lot of damage on the front of the Mercedes.
I'm now watching the battle for 13th between Hugh North and Andrea Azzolini. I'm expecting a lunge from Azzolini based on prior form, but Hugh North is being held up by another Pride car of Justin Atchison, who's a lap behind. So this battle.
Yeah, these are the last cars on the lead lap as well. So the leaders will be coming up behind it. Blake McCord will be within a couple of laps time anyway, up onto the back of this little battle here.
Hugh North manages to clear Atchison, and Azzolini was still right on his tail. And then the Mercedes of Jason Drescher, who just lost these 2 places in the previous lap. I was wondering if maybe the obvious damage on the front of his car was causing issues, but it seems to have been able to hold on since then, so perhaps it's not so bad. We've got a Mercedes off on the inside of turn 2. It's to David Nadeau. He's had an adventure of a race. He's already 7 laps down in 28th position. Gets back on the track and manages to not quite block Wes Dushak there. And now we've got Blake McCord in the lead, coming up behind David Nadeau, and has to take to the grass to make the lap on him, but does manage to get through safely.
Yeah, he comes up over the uphill, and with any luck, we'll have a couple of laps here at least to just sort of cool things down. We pick up the battle again with Pinkerton and Herndon, this time into the left-hander, and Pinkerton's definitely got more pace on Herndon. There's no question about it, even with all that damage up at the front end. But as they had passed a stricken Mercedes to the driver's right, it's going to be tough to make the move. Herndon's got a clean car and thus plenty of top speed down the front straightaway, and I don't think Pinkerton is just not quite quick enough where it counts and where he could actually make a move on the number 28.
We had Ryan Thomas lose nearly 3 seconds on that previous lap. He was less than a second behind Blake McCord for the lead. I believe he got caught up in traffic pretty significantly, so that gap is now stretched, and Blake McCord is under a lot less pressure than he was a lap ago.
Yeah, traffic giveth and traffic taketh away. Is it an Audi to driver's left at West Bend, came flying in from driver's left. I think everybody's got through that, but it was one of the Pride Audis who had gone off, and I think was rejoining just behind, well, in front of and then behind the number 17 of Blake McCord. Kind of a wild moment there.
It's Andrew Pinkerton and Brendan Baker. They're banging doors, going side by side, and now again. And that was a little bit naughty there by Andrew Pinkerton.
Yep,
that was
inevitable.
That was a clear brake check, I'm afraid, by Andrew Pinkerton. Pretty obvious, horrendous driving there, if I'm honest. I'm not sure what he was trying to pull, but he's certainly ended his own race and Brendan Baker's right there.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's parked it there. Neither of them are particularly happy.
They parked it against each other on the racing line, so
yeah.
This is going to cause issues as the field comes round.
Yeah, there's no reason the two of them need to be sat there on the racing line. Get out the car, or at least send it back to the pit lane, take the tow, and be done.
Yeah, not impressive behaviour there from those two.
No, especially given the pace that they had both in race 1 and race 2. That was a good chance that it was going to be on for a decent battle for at least the next couple of minutes until it worked itself out. But unfortunately, that sort of all ended in tears there at the uphill. And then
and unfortunately, it was Nick Rowland who also ran into the back of them. I think he's got away with it. It looks like he has some damage, but
by and large, that car looks okay.
It does look okay. It was a big impact, so it's kind of surprising that it was so okay.
What we have now at the top of the field is really nobody anywhere near each other, which is sort of the polar opposite as to where we were this time in race 1. But with under 10 minutes to go, it's McCord 5 seconds ahead of Thomas, who's 8 ahead of Andrusco, and then another 14 back to Herndon. I
would suggest that Perry Herndon, who has Nick Rowland behind him, that's going to become a battle pretty quick, because Nick has, over the course of the day, had much more pace than Perry. And in fact, as they come to the penultimate corner now, they're basically nose to tail for 4th position.
Yeah, absolutely. And if Rowland's able to lag back just a little bit and get the run through the final corner, there's every chance he'd be able to make a move on the brakes into turn number 1. On board with Rowland now in the slipstream, out of turn 7 and into the braking zone for Big Bend. Wait for the 2 board, jump on the brakes, and he's got the move done. Fair and square. And I think Herndon realized he wasn't going to be able to defend very much there. Yeah,
nice and clean and completely inevitable. So that was good racing from these two. Let's see if Nick Rowland can now set about. It's a 16-second gap up to Trevor Andrusco.
Yeah, he'll have about 10 or 11 laps to make it happen. If Andrusco's got damage, it can be done, but Andrusco is quite a bit quicker than Herndon was. So it'll be a much taller order.
Rowland is about 9/10 of a second quicker than Andrusco, so it's going to take an issue for Trevor for that battle to come together.
On board Andrea Zellini now, who looks like he might be recovering. Oh no, yeah, absolutely right. It's a replay through the right-hander, clips the curve on the inside, drifts out just far enough. Drivers left. Might have picked up an off track there and registered it in iRacing, but no harm, no foul, no spin. No contact with the wall, and Andrea Zellini carries on back in P9.
So I think the next battle we're going to have to watch, and it should be in the next couple of corners, is going to be Perry Herndon again in the 28 car with 64 of Alex Gomes coming up behind him. Again, Alex Gomes has been one of the faster. Has had one of the faster packages through the day. So whereas Perry's about a second a lap off his pace at the moment, so that's going to become a fight for 5th place in the next few corners.
Yeah, and crucially, car of Alex Gomes.
Back marker in the way. Herndon has to jump the curb, and that's going to be enough to let Gomes through.
Yeah, we saw from looking rearwards out of Herndon's car, he was on the curb and in the grass before the apex of the final corner, and absolutely right, it's allowed Gomes, through up the inside and on the brakes into turn 1. The move is complete.
The next car in line in 7th place is Nikita Ponaris, so he has managed to get himself back into the top 10, although I think he's in a wheel-to-wheel fight right now with Hugh North.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Andrea Angelini.
And they're side by side through the left-hander now. Hugh North on driver's left and Nikita Ponaris in the 311 to driver's right. They sort themselves back out for no name straight. Hugh North not able to make the move complete. Lap number 28 here with just over 6 minutes to go, having probably 7 or 8 laps more to get this done. I think North is being held up here by Ponaris, but North is in a recovery drive and has been since about lap 2. Ponaris, meanwhile, like you mentioned, is up from 31st on the grid and just has kept it, apart from a little damage to the back end of that Ferrari, is completely clean.
While that battle was going on, we also have a close fight, nose to tail for P2. That's between Ryan Thomas and 0-2 car and Trevor Andrusko in the 99. Andrusko has slightly more pace than Thomas, but really Thomas has been held up by back markers over the last couple, which is why that battle is now coming together. So it'll be interesting to see whether Thomas can re-find his rhythm and hold that position, or whether it's going to be Andrusko who...
Yeah, on board with Azzolini now at the back of this trio fighting for 7th. Ponaris is that lead car, and then the silver Mercedes is Hugh North. Ponaris is off rhythm as they come down the front straightaway. Hugh North has to check up as they come down the hill, and Azzolini gets the clean run. North looks to the inside. Azzolini in the slipstream of the two of them into the braking zone is close, but not close enough, and the three of them carry on pretty much exactly as they were, albeit now with, a few meters less between them. Ponaris slides wide, and Hugh North on the brakes on the inside gets the move done into the left-hander. Fantastic move by Hugh North.
It's funny that Nikita Ponaris has come up 25 positions or so, but every time we look at him, he's going backwards. It's poor luck for him. But meanwhile, at the front, Ryan Thomas and Trevor Andrusko are still nose to tail. Andrusko seems to be just inching up closer and closer.
Yeah, Thomas is driving really defensively, but it's going to bite him. We're just taking a look at that battle for 7th, but I think Andrusko's got the move made for. He certainly does.
Meanwhile, Azzolini is right on, and he makes a dive into turn 1. Really late move, and unfortunately, Nikita's just bit on the brakes. That was all Nikita, unfortunately, under pressure from Azzolini.
So no contact there, Scott, between...
No contact. It was just losing it on the brakes, just running in far too long, unfortunately. I don't know if he's managed to hold on to the position. The next car behind actually was the leader, so he should have gone, presumably he's gone a lap down at this point. So yeah, I think he's held position, because it's Matt Strand who is now the next car behind Nikita Ponaris. So he will hold on to that 9th place for now.
Yeah, Strand's, like we said, carrying a lot of damage, and I'm not sure he's going to have the pace to catch Ponaris for P9.
Azzolini is quickly onto the back of Hugh North, having disposed of Nikita Ponaris. So this should be another position change coming up soon.
They're both caught up behind a BMW lap traffic. It's Matt Hart in the number 4.
Matt Hart in the modified division, running very little bodywork on the car at this point of the race. Actually, very little on the rear of the car either.
Azzolini's caught up behind him through the right-hander into the uphill.
Yeah.
Ooh, and he tried to go to the outside. That was not on, and it's cost Azzolini big time.
There's not a lot of grip out on that runoff there, and yeah, he found that. Unfortunately, it cost him a lot to guys. We had to be behind him for one more corner.
Unfortunately, I think that was Azzolini just being a little impatient. He tried to get through on driver's right, whereas if he had backed the corner off and come in the throttle earlier, cut it back to the inside on the exit, he could have swung up the inside down the straightaway and on the brakes into West Bend, and been maybe a few car lengths behind Hugh North instead of a few seconds.
Yeah, that's 2.5 seconds he's got to make up now, which is brutal. It's going to be a few laps, and we're coming rapidly towards the end of the race.
Yeah, estimates have about 3 more laps left. We're 2.5 minutes to go in the second of 30-minute sprint races here at Lime Rock. Coming to the end of our evening, Blake McCord is your leader still, 11 seconds ahead of Trevor Andrisco, who is still fighting valiantly ahead of Ryan Thomas. Not quite as defensive as he was, I think. Well, it was, of course, Andrisco having got through more recently, just a couple of laps ago, wasn't it? So Thomas is actually falling off the back of Andrisco. But no matter, because Thomas has got 14 seconds back to Nick Rowland, who has sort of just backed off and held his position just off the podium.
What might become our next battle on the lead lap, and therefore in the top 8, is Perry Herndon is going backwards towards Hugh North. And with Azzolini also catching Hugh North, that could become pretty exciting in the last couple of laps as we head towards check. This is only 6th place.
Only one car anywhere near Perry Herndon, that's Chance Kelly, who is a lap down, but he's back in 15th with a clean car, so I don't think he'll play much of a factor at the end of this race. It should just be a clean scrap, between Perry Herndon and Hugh North, and if Azzolini's able to get there, him as well. But he is running out of time, like we mentioned. Should just be about 2 laps to go as they come across the line to complete lap number 30.
Yeah, so that last lap there for Perry Herndon was a 50.152, and Hugh North was 0.6 of a second faster behind him. I think Andrea Azzolini had to deal with a BMW on that lap. So
I'd call Azzolini out of this. Alex Gomes is spun out of 5th. Drivers left at the run on to No Name Straight, and he's going to be caught by Perry Herndon here very quickly. This battle we were just talking about.
So Gomes, he should have pace on Perry Herndon. He has all evening.
Yeah, he's back up to speed as well.
That mistake won't cost him anything. Maybe it cost him a chance at Nick Rowland, but yeah, he should hold on to that top 5 position in race 2. Meanwhile, Perry Herndon is definitely going backwards towards Hugh North here. This is going to be within a lap or 2.
Blake McCord down the front straightaway should be beginning his final lap. 18 seconds to go. He crosses the line to complete lap number 36. And indeed, we are on the final lap of race 2 from Lime Rock Park. We follow Blake McCord out in front, but at the moment, our closest battle on track is Perry Herndon and Hugh North, more or less nose to tail up No Name Straight. And
turn 1 for Trevor Andrisco, who is 2nd. He's also taken Matt Strand off the road, but Andrisco is going to lose 2nd place.
He did. Yeah, absolutely. Ryan Thomas is through. Nick Rowland comes through Big Ben now as well, but I think it's just going to be enough there for Andrisco to hang on to P3 on the final lap. Blake McCord through West Bend in the red number 17 Mercedes AMG GT3, down the downhill and onto the front straightaway. Race 2 and $100 towards an entry at next year's SimCraft 24 Hours of Orlando. Blake McCord is your winner. Trevor Andrisco, as we head back.
It's going to be Ryan Thomas coming home in 2nd.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Yep.
After Andrisco tried to lap a car into turn 1 and just went in way too deep on the brakes and spun them both out. But yeah, it's Ryan Thomas who comes through for 2nd, and Andrisco is going to hold on to 3rd.
Absolutely correct. Rowland in P4. Gomes, I think, will come through in P5.
Yes, and it looks like Perry Herndon's managed to pick up a little bit of pace. He got into the mid-49s for the last couple of laps, and he's going to hold on to 6th place ahead of Hugh North and Andrea Azzolini.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Andrea Azzolini really caught Hugh North on that last lap. They are basically nose to tail down the front straightaway, but not enough to do coming off the corner there. The short run down to the checkered flag, and it's Herndon, North, Azzolini, P6, 7, and 8. Nikita Ponaris finishes P9, the first car lap down. Andrew Balthez will round out the top 10.
Yeah, Matt Strand got caught up in the Trevor Andrisco spin on that last lap, so he lost a place to Andrew Balthez there, and that knocked him out of the top 10, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And, well, it was kind of altogether a different race than we saw in race 1, but holy cow. Some of the fighting within the top 10 was absolutely magnificent.
And he's got to, Blake, you've got to map a turn TCS off button, I'm afraid, if you want to pull off some NASCAR style donuts. But congratulations on the win anyway. 16 seconds, fairly dominant in the end, but I dare say it was easy considering the amount of lap cars he must have had to pass there through the 30 minutes.
I think Blake's figured out how to deal with the traction control, or turning the traction control off, but it turns out that you can spin the car much more easily. Never mind trying to do a burnout. So doing a little bit of grass mowing, but nevertheless, congratulations to Blake McCord. And I think, is that not the first Mercedes win of the season? Roland's done it twice now in an Audi R8.
First non-Roland win of the season.
Yeah, indeed.
Do we know which team Blake McCord races for?
Give me just a moment. I can take care of that, maybe.
Sorry, I'm kind of
an interview here.
I certainly know the answer to it. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, I'll take that as a GT3 style celebration there.
It was certainly a GT3 style race. I mean, a lot of times you get not so much carnage, but with single class racing, it can get a little physical. Sort of touring cars. It's definitely what we saw.
Yeah, not only physical, but certainly saw a number of tempers fraying there. Some questionable decision making as well. But yeah, and a lot of hip and shoulder. We saw Azzolini run over a couple of drivers, including Nick Rowland, who impressively came back from fourth place after that. I think Nick was off on the first lap and then also spun out towards the middle of the race when Azzolini ran into the back of him.
Yeah, like in so many of these cases, you look at the grid positions and the race positions, and yeah, they're fairly close. You look at Andrisco second and third, respectively. Absolutely not representative of how the race went. Yeah, and I think we actually have Trevor here. We're just mentioning they're having started second, finished third. It was sort of a late mistake that dropped you back to third, Trevor, but you ended up on the podium after all was said and done anyway.
Not just a late mistake, an early mistake. I drove off turn one early in the race by myself after first and second connected, and was going to have a clean race after that. And Lime Rock is such an easy track to go fast, but a very difficult track to race at. And I think we saw that, and you guys saw that with the lap traffic tonight.
Yeah. So what was lap traffic like? We could see it, but we're not behind the wheel. There's 30-something cars on a 1.5-mile track, and every time you come across a car, it doesn't look anything like the first time you saw it.
No, so Lime Rock is such an easy track to find a rhythm and kind of get in the groove with, and then you come up on somebody that's running a second slower than you per lap, and there's no lane to get around them. I had a couple of incidents throughout the race where I got connected with somebody else that was on a slower lap, and I think I spun 3 times that race and still ended up P3. Kind of just got back on track and kept my head down and tried to get back to the front.
Any moments of interest from your race one?
All of it. Didn't really have a good start, didn't have a good qualifying, and just tried to get back into that transfer spot for the invert for race 2. Ended up working out okay for me, except for, in race 2, all of the there was a lot of contact that race. Kind of expected a little bit better from these guys tonight.
Looking forward to moving on from Lime Rock then.
Yeah, please ban Lime Rock.
I think that's already been discussed sort of off the server. Is the last time we maybe do something like this. So thanks for that, Trevor. Really appreciate it. Certainly a heck of a 2 races from our perspective, and a podium is not a bad way to finish off the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be in the points. Thanks to everybody at Simcraft and Track 9 and Kingpin Racing for tonight.
I appreciate it, Trevor. Thanks very much. Is anybody else for an interview? Or more than welcome. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. If I think we can get Blake McCord.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Absolutely. Congratulations, first and foremost. That was wild, eh?
Oh my goodness, non-stop. I mean, lap traffic, that was probably the biggest thing. I think I hit 2 or 3 of them. I got rear-ended at turn 1, I think. I didn't think I was going to make it past turn or lap 1, much less. But big shout out to, I don't know if he's in here, my teammate from Bois Racing Team, Ryan Thomas, came home with P2. So Bois Racing Team wrapped up P1 and 2, and this can be more.
I hadn't realized you guys are teammates. That is fantastic. Not at all the race, the same race 1 to race 2. I think it was a little more spread out up at the top. Once you got out front, it kind of seemed not so much clean sailing from a lap traffic perspective, but you really didn't have any pressure from behind. A little easier to focus out the front of the windshield then?
Yeah, once I got past Ryan caught up to me at some point. I don't remember. We hit some. I pulled away a little, then hit some traffic. Didn't get through it very well, and then got Ryan was on me again. So the nerves shot up, and ended up just eking out a little bit. And finally, lap traffic actually helped me for a little bit. And like saying, on my relative screen, all I saw was blue, and I felt pretty good at that. I think Jason Burgess came on. I don't know how many laps, 10 laps to go or something. Said I had a 12-second lead. I was looking to back it off, but not too much, and ruin my rhythm.
Well, so your race one, take us back to what you saw in that first 30 minutes then as well.
Well, it started off bad. I blew qualifying completely. Ran wide, turn one, got it on the dirt, and can't save it after that. Let's see, lap two, I spun it in turn three, so had one good lap for qualifying, which, of course, it isn't enough to get this thing up to temperature at this track at least. So I was a good 6-7 tenths off my best practice time for qualifying, so I started 13th, and just kept it clean. Completely clean somehow, and ended up getting 7th. So I should have had 5th and 6th, really. That was a great battle there. But couldn't get them. Turned out it worked out for this race, I guess.
Yeah, and certainly worked out for Ball Racing Team as a whole. Two top 10s for yourself, the win, and then obviously the 1-2 there in race 2 as well, with Ryan coming on behind you is just fantastic. And if you guys are around for the SimCraft 24 Hours of Orlando next year, it's now $100 cheaper for you. So
it.
All good things. All good things. Congratulations again, Blake, and appreciate you coming by for an interview. Certainly a lot of fun for us, and hopefully we get to do this all again next Wednesday night.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Awesome time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Blake. Really appreciate that. We might have one more interview left, just working out maybe an additional interview here if we can get Perry Herndon on, who maybe had the most interesting evening out of everybody. Certainly the biggest discrepancy from race 1 to race 2.
I'm just watching through Blake McCord's first 10 laps here, and I've counted at least 4 points where he was just a little quirk of physics away from completely ending his day. So I think that's probably the story of the entire field, but he managed to, clearly had the cleanest race of everyone, because he managed to finish 16 seconds ahead of the rest of them. But yeah, if this is a clean race, then some of the guys in the back certainly had an adventure.
Yeah, and this is, the nature of let's say small track racing or short track racing, at least when you consider road courses. It's just brutal in cars like these to try and stay clean. Everybody's so bunched together and so evenly matched that it almost feels like the contact is inevitable. I think everybody would have liked to have seen a cleaner race or 2 cleaner races than we saw tonight.
Hopefully we've proved that everyone needs to invest in some different tracks. We know that Lime Rock's free, and therefore everyone loves it for that. But it's not totally suited to this type of racing. So yeah, let's get out. Let's get on some bigger tracks where these cars can stretch their legs, and see what kind of racing we can get out of that.
Yeah, and I think as the rest of the season goes, we know we'll be adding a race onto the end of the season, and that'll be confirmed here in due course. But at least as things stand, we've got another couple of races coming up, and this is the last time we do a bull ring like this. That's already been decided. Fun in the meantime, entertaining for us, certainly, and hopefully entertaining for everybody else.
I certainly loved it. I'm sure didn't necessarily agree quite so much. There was definitely some strong words being said in the in-game chat during that, which most of which I completely understood. A couple of guys who maybe were yelling about driving standards, calling the kettle black a little bit, but let's get these guys on out somewhere a little bit more appropriate. I think our next round's at Laguna Seca, if I'm correct.
I think you are correct. I don't have the schedule up in front of me. And struggling a little bit to find the poster, but there it is. Yeah, absolutely. Laguna Seca on April 29th. Road America May 6th, and then the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course on May 13th. We've heard rumors that perhaps it'll be a track in Georgia, on May the 20th to round out the season, but that remains to be seen. So much better from a GT3 perspective, I think. Laguna Seca could be a bit of a challenge next weekend just because of the nature of Laguna Seca, but yeah, we'll wait and see. Certainly it'll be an improvement over what we saw at Lime Rock tonight. Again, a challenge, but entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah, you're asking a lot of guys of 40 guys to remain clean on as you say, a bull ring like this. So yeah, let's get it. Yeah, somewhere like Laguna Seca that's going to be a really good race. It's a nice wide track with smooth curves, plenty of smooth curbs, plenty of runoff, and a little bit of camber to help out as well. So sort of ease the guys around the circuit. Whereas here it's all bumps and off cambers for the most part and big curbs. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to give these guys a chance to have a good race next time.
So I think we're going to try and get Perry Herndon there, but not having much luck getting him unmuted here. So we'll move on. Yeah, you may be able to get Perry if you have the opportunity to throw some thoughts in the Discord if you can hear us. I'll be able to relay those. Otherwise, is Jerome Bureau with us from room 2? Perhaps not. Unmuted, but not available. I see him typing, but such is the nature of sim racing here. It doesn't have a mic. Well, anyway, that would have been our connection to room 2 there. If Nikita Ponaris were around, maybe we could have spoken with him as to how race 1 went, seeing as he finished at the front. But anyway, it's worked out all right. So with all that said, I don't think we've got anybody left to talk to. Scott, any closing thoughts? I think we've covered most of it.
Yeah. I think in a couple of cases we maybe need the our league admins to refresh the drivers on what are acceptable driving standards. But by and large, we did our best at what is a really, really difficult combination. I think looks like we've got Nikita Ponaris now, so I don't know if you want to have a chat with him.
Yeah, unmuted, but still, I think he may not have a mic. Oh, no, he's unmuted himself now. Nikita, you there and interested in chatting with us here briefly?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, you've you more than anybody have done a lot of traveling tonight from room 2 up to room 1. We know you had pre-qualified in room 1, obviously, and you were due to start the race there, but things didn't quite work out the way you were supposed to. So first, tell us what race 1 in room 2 was like. We didn't get to see any of that.
It was really interesting. So I didn't get a lap in qualifying, so I had to start 7th, I think, which was last. But through turn 1 on the first lap, I made it up to 3rd, I think, and just managed my way through the other 2 cars and just led the whole race.
So a much easier race than you had in race 2 in room 1 then.
Yes, for sure.
So you were, I think, P31 on the grid, starting at the back in race 2, obviously having been in the other room in the first race. You ended up 9th, and I think you ran as high as 6th. Is that correct?
6th or 7th. Yeah, that was the highest, but I fell back a bit and then had that spin. But I was glad I could hold the top 10.
It looked really close. We actually thought, or I actually thought initially that there might have been some contact there, but towards the end of the race, that spin you mentioned down at turn 1 just got a little too deep on the brakes.
Yeah, I just went in a bit too deep. I was trying to hold on to it and just lost it, but I was able to get back going, luckily.
And we don't do drives of the race or any sort of official voting here, but we're going to nominate anybody. 31st up to 9th is a heck of a run for an evening, and especially having not been around this group of drivers in race 1. It was well held and well handled and a good drive all around.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank USAC for hosting this event too. I wish I could be out driving with my team Trinity Karting Group right now, but this is a good way to do it through this tough time.
Yeah, we're all enjoying the opportunity to kind of be together, and we really appreciate you coming by for the interview, and everybody, we appreciate everybody being a part of this and giving us something to talk about. We miss everybody from Orlando. We had a great time there back at the SimCraft 24, and it's kind of giving us an opportunity to for us to be together again, but also to watch some great racing and really just enjoy as much racing as we can while things are in sort of a different the world's in sort of a different situation. So with that, I think we've we've got closing thoughts from Scott. As far as I'll say, I think this is an anomaly as to what we'd see throughout the rest of the season. It was entertaining. If that's what you're looking for, driving standards maybe can be improved, but such is the nature of short track racing, and Laguna Seca next week should be an altogether different experience than we saw tonight at Lime Rock. So with all that being said, Driver's Eye Live, myself, Brendan Kazmarek, and Scott Michaels joining me on the other microphone. Joseph Mudrak was your producer for the evening, a silent partner, but in our ears most of the night. A fantastic job from him as well. Thanks, everybody, for your company, and a big thanks to TJ Halsema as well for putting all this on PMG Promotions on behalf of USAC Karting for the USACkarting.com Invitational eSeries. This was Driver's Eye Live. Happy to have everybody along, and we'll see you at the same time, 7:15 p.m. Eastern next week from Laguna Seca for round 2 and 2 more 30-minute sprints of racing. And we'll see you then.